Hello, and welcome back to ZenithTech. We're here today to cover the progression of video equipment that we've had over the past few months, and where we ended up today with the Panasonic G7. Hello, and welcome to my $2,000 computer build guide. So we're going to start off at the beginning so I can show you, the viewer, the progression that I've had and the knowledge that I've gained over the last few months. So hopefully you can mitigate some of the earlier steps and hop to the production equipment that you need. I started off with the Logitech C920 in our build guide, if you will, of Avalanche, my $2,000 computer. Now, the Logitech C920, it worked well for the podcasts, and for the Avalanche build, when I was editing it, I realized how crappy the video quality was for that type of work, and I knew that I needed something a little bit more robust. I did at that point also have the Canon SX520, 1080p zoom point and shoot type of camera. However, that one only lasted me maybe 20 or 30 minutes on the battery charge that I had, and I wasn't able to use it for most of the build. There are a couple shots in the Avalanche build that were shot on the SX520 that did look very good, but that was the result of me essentially flooding the area with light to try to remove some of the ISO performance, because it had an auto ISO mode, and that was the only mode that was active for video, which was incredibly frustrating, as seen by some of these shots. You can see all of the different ISO noise and all of the background distortion going on. It really wasn't a very good camera for video production because I didn't have full control over everything. I used the SX520 for a few months. It wasn't very fun to use because I didn't have the ability to customize everything, but it ended up working out pretty well for a couple of the videos that I did. As soon as the Panasonic G7 came out, I realized that it was probably the next upgrade for me. The GH4 was a little bit out of my price range, especially considering that the Metabone Speed Booster is half the price of the GH4, or $650, at least in today's market. And the Panasonic G7 was a good compromise in between the specs that I needed and the capabilities that I need versus the total image quality that I was really looking to get out of my cameras. And as soon as I got the G7, I realized how good of an investment that really was. The SX520 had terrible ISO problems, it lacked full manual controls, no focus ring on the lens, the whole variety of things that I was talking about before. And the G7 didn't suffer from any of those things. I had full manual control over the ISO, shutter speed, aperture, focal, like being able to pull focus with my lenses, as well as being able to interchange lenses, something that the SX520 did not have, which was also a little annoying at times. And here's the start of the review. At this point, I knew the base level, that resolution was important, that sharpness was important, and that the ISO number had to be low to make sure that all of these shots had the least amount of noise in them as possible. as seen through a 2360,000 dot OLED viewfinder. I'm not sure if that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, but it is 2,360K, or 2.36 million dot OLED viewfinder, and a 1.04 million dot rear LCD monitor, which is just over 720p. The internal one, the one through the viewfinder, is just over 1080p, roughly, if you're talking in resolution or video resolution. The stock lens that my camera came with was a 14 to 42 millimeter f3.5 at the 14 millimeter side and f5.6 at the 42 millimeter side lens with optical image stabilization. It has 12 elements in 9 groups and a minimum focus distance of 1 foot, or roughly 0.333 meters. In terms of I/O, it has a mic input, a remote input, an audio digital port. It's a USB 2 proprietary connector type of thing. There is a USB cable included, and a micro HDMI port capable of 4K 30 frames a second, as well as 1080p and any other video resolution or image resolution that you're looking for. I would love to go into all of the specs of this camera, but there are quite a few. So I'll leave a link in the description to the product page so you can go through and click down all of the different drop-down menus they have on the Panasonic website to see any specifications that you're looking for. If you don't find something there that you're looking for in particular, just drop it in the comments below and I'll try to help you out when I see the comment. So keep in mind that I've been looking at this camera through the eyes of a videographer, or at least somebody looking to get into videography and not necessarily photography. I will have image samples throughout the video, like the one on the screen now, but I haven't tested all of the features that the camera has in both photography and videography mode. Panasonic touts this camera as having superb DSLM image quality without the bulk and weight of traditional DSLRs. And that is true. It is a micro four thirds camera with a mirrorless sensor, so it does do very, very well in terms of the total amount of weight and the compactness of the camera setup. It has 4K UHD video as well as pause and save 4K video photo modes. The 4K video is something that I've been using quite extensively. However, the 4K pause and save photo mode is something that I have not used much of at all. In terms of autofocus, yes, it does have it, and it does quite a good job through its stock lens. However, I haven't been able to test it with any other samples of lenses. So eventually, I might use the autofocus more, but at this point, I find that my fingers can find the focus points faster than anything that the camera is capable of doing. Now, the 4K image mode is pretty neat. It's an electronic shutter burst mode, more or less. It does capture lower resolution pictures than the regular burst mode would. However, if you're in a fast-paced scenario, say a football game or a sports game of some sort, and you need those fast images, and resolution isn't necessarily the end goal, using the 4K image capture is definitely a good option, because it does capture, I believe, at 40 frames a second, and it's very good for an electronic shutter at least. Now, the burst fire mode that this camera has, it is very good. It is up to 6 frames a second, which for a mirrorless micro four thirds camera is very good. It's not something that I personally use a whole lot, but with the camera paired with the Samsung Pro 64GB SD card that I have, I'll leave a link in the description, I was able to capture, I believe it was 461 sequential images using the burst fire mode, and there was no heat limit going on. I was just getting tired of holding the button down because of how long that lasted. So I believe it'll be more than enough for anybody needing to capture multiple images very rapidly, maybe even over a long period of time. Pair it with a larger SD card and you might be able to take, a couple thousand pretty easily, just holding the shutter button down and letting it go. Now, on the product website, Panasonic says that 4K video has 4 times the detail of 1080p, and that's something I kind of have to call them out on saying, because yes, there are more pixels that can be used when you're recording in 4K versus 1080p. However, the difference between a good 4K image and a good 1080p image is a lot of sharpness. Your lens that you have on the camera has to be sharp enough to produce a difference in color between one pixel and another. For a 1080p camera, there is a lot of interpolation in between the values. So, for instance, say I had a grid of pixels, 4 pixels. 2 of them are black and 2 of them are white. A 1080p camera would interpret that as some sort of gray, whereas a 4K camera would interpret that as 2 white pixels and 2 black pixels. However, if your lens is not good enough to resolve them as truly black pixels and truly white pixels, you will end up with some sort of intermangled mess of color even at 4K. So your 4K image might look like a 1080p image. Other than that, it's time to get into my use of the camera and the different settings that the Panasonic G7 has. The stock lens is a decent enough starter lens, and it's something that I used for the first few months when trying to figure out all the little details of this camera and all of the different settings and the standard settings that I would like to run at. So the G7 body itself is a very capable body, and it does quite a good job. Now let's get into the stock lens itself. The stock lens, the 14 to 42mm, it does a good job with sharpness, overall detail, and color reproduction over the course of the entire image. However, the lack of ability to turn off the optical image stabilization in the lens was something that was very frustrating when trying to make videos with it, and there wasn't a whole lot of detail or a whole lot of control that I could have over the aperture. Sure, I could turn it up higher, but there wasn't any way to make it a faster lens, and a faster lens with a more blurred out background was something that I was really looking for in some of my images, some of my videos as well. So the G7 has a variety of different recording modes for video in particular. It has a Cine-D, a standard, a vivid, natural, monochrome, scenery, portrait, and Cine-V preset. Now the Cine-D and the Cine-V presets are only available when recording video. However, the standard, vivid, natural, monochrome, and scenery and portrait presets are all available also when taking pictures. Here are some clips that have the different presets. This first clip is Cine-D. The second clip is in standard mode. This third clip is in vivid mode. This fourth clip is the natural preset. This fifth one is monochrome. The sixth preset is scenery. This seventh example is the portrait preset. And the eighth preset shown here is Cine-V. Here they are, put next to each other so you can see the exact differences in color, saturation, and overall image quality. Now again, I use Cine-D for all of my professional shooting. However, the Cine-V is a good set it and forget it type of preset if you are not so great at color correcting, or it's something that you don't really want to do a whole lot of. Now we're going to get into the lens upgrade that I had. So I started off with the stock lens. It worked quite well, as I talked about before, but it wasn't sharp enough. It didn't give me a lot of that blurred background that I was looking for, so I went out to try to find a faster lens. And I came up with the Rokinon T2.2 16mm micro four thirds lens. This lens worked really well. It had great sharpness and overall consistency. It was pretty sharp at T2.2 with a bit of softness on the edges, but everything all the way across the image was sharp at T2.8. Generally, I was very happy with the lens until I realized that upgradability suffered because there are very, very, very few Micro Four Thirds lenses built for videography. There are lenses out there for photography, but for videography they're quite limited. Which is why I ended up making the plunge to get the Metabone Speed Booster, the 0.71x version, not the 0.69 version. Now this isn't a review of the Speed Booster itself, but it's covering the general reasons why I upgraded and traded in my Micro Four Thirds lens for this Speed Booster and a Canon version of the Rokinon lens. The Micro Four Thirds version, it did very, very well, but I realized if I had entered the Micro Four Thirds lens arena, I would have to stay there until either upgrading my camera or eventually being able to get the Speed Booster and essentially trade in my old Micro Four Thirds lenses for Canon lenses. And with lens value depreciation over time, I really didn't want to make that compromise to the upgradability of my camera. So I ended up jumping in, I bought the Metabone Speed Booster, and I bought a Canon lens. Now with this Speed Booster, it lets in roughly an extra stop of light. It gives all of my lenses more field of view, so I'm able to see more, which is always great. It essentially allows me to use more of the image that the lens is giving to the sensor. And the Speed Booster can adapt from Micro Four Thirds cameras to Canon lenses or Nikon lenses. And let me say, the difference between the Speed Booster and the Canon lens to the Micro Four Thirds lens is insane. It really is. Here are some video samples that I shot with the Micro Four Thirds. The Micro Four Thirds one is going to be on the left, and the one with the Speed Booster is going to be on the right when I do the comparison after I show both of the clips individually. Now the Speed Booster itself, it not only allows me to use a wider range of cinema lenses, as well as making all of the cinema lenses that I will purchase be better on this camera, but it also allows me to use the lenses that Gotham has. And well, here are a few clips of us essentially just running around shooting things around campus using his lenses instead of my Rokinon lens. And let's just say I think this camera is finally outputting the video quality that I'm looking for my videos, not only for the YouTube stuff for ZenithTech, as well as for my professional video production with Zenith Media Group and with Gotham. And I'm very happy with the overall upgrades that I have made and where I've ended up. There is one thing that I have yet to cover about the Panasonic G7, and that's the Wi-Fi capability in the Panasonic app itself. Alright, so the one thing that I have yet to really cover about the Panasonic G7 is its app. The wireless app and the wireless capabilities that it has. So we're going to start off here. This is on my Nexus 7. Apologies for hitting the mic. This is on my Nexus 7. You can see that I'm currently recording myself and viewing myself on the screen here, and you can see the delay is actually not too bad on it. So over here we have a record button, we have a display button, and with this drop down we have functionality integrated into the app, so we can not only see the length of time, the type of autofocus we're using, the total saturation, or how dark or how light the image is, the ISO, the recording time left, battery performance. It has essentially everything you could need for viewing what's going on the camera. Say you have to set up the camera somewhere else and operate it totally remotely. That is completely possible using this app. So if you're in a couple rooms away, this app might not work so well for you. However, it has functioned very, very well for me over the long term, and I really haven't had any problems with it. Now, a really cool thing that the camera can do through this app is transfer images and videos through that wireless connection that it has to the device that the app is running on. So for instance, if I hit this little play button, okay, so it's not available during video recording. I wish I could show you, but you hit the play button and you can select the images or the videos that you'd like to transfer, making it very easy to post things onto social media, which is very nice because then you don't have to rely on the camera that's on the back of your device for all of your images. I've been using this quite a bit with my Nexus 6 over here because let's just say the camera on here is not great. I can show you here a quick little clip. The autofocus likes to go crazy all the time, and it's incredibly frustrating. I tried to do some recording of the camera and its HDMI output with the Nexus 6, but it was unusable footage, as you're seeing. So through the app, you can control everything. You can control the ISO. You can see I just boosted the ISO to 400, and it changed on there. I dropped it back to 200 where it was before. Or if we go back, I can change the different presets and stuff. It's actually really great, and I've used it a few times when I've been across the room from the camera and I want to make sure that everything is still looking as it should on the camera, that we're capturing the right image. Yeah, it works pretty well. So one thing that I would not use this app for is trying to use this as an external monitor for the camera itself, primarily because of the low bitrate that you get from the wireless signal from the camera. The low bitrate means that this image is incredibly hard to focus. If you tried to focus solely off of what it's showing here, you would often overfocus or underfocus on the subject, and things wouldn't go too well. So if you need an external monitor, make sure you go and look for something that is compatible with the G7. Again, I haven't found anything that I'm particularly interested in buying, but that might be something that you want to look into long term. So it took a little bit to get here, but I finally think that the video quality that we have is where it needs to be, and I'm very, very pleased with the purchases that I've made. And I hope that this video has kind of shown you a little bit of what the G7 is like and how it performs in everyday use. So thank you for supporting our channel. Thank you for watching this video. Please hit that subscribe button if you'd like to stay up to date with our weekly videos, and hit that like button if you really enjoyed this content in particular. Leave a comment down below if there's anything that you'd like us to see, any types of products that you'd like to see us review. Leave us a dislike if you didn't enjoy the content, and please, if you do leave that dislike, leave a comment down below letting us know what exactly you didn't like about the content and what we could do to make it better. Because it is not our job to make content that we like to watch, but it's our job to make content that people on the internet like to watch. So thank you again for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. See ya.